The twin suns of the Varelia Empire were setting, their orange light spreading across silver towers that reached the clouds. Princess Lyra stood alone on a high balcony, her reflection dim in the polished glass of the palace wall. Once that reflection had belonged to someone loved by millions. Now it showed a woman every voice in the empire had turned against. Lyra had been raised to lead the galaxy's most powerful race, but her heart had always been different. Where others saw war and glory, she saw suffering and waste. She spoke about peace, about understanding other species, even the humans her people considered weak and primitive. That was her mistake. Her father, the Emperor, called her words a disease that would poison their strength. The night of her downfall began in the council hall. Her father stood above her, tall and cruel, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You speak of mercy for the humans," he said. "They crawl across one world and you would shame your bloodline for them." Lyra met his eyes, calm but firm. "They feel pain. They care for each other. Perhaps that is strength too." Gasps filled the room. Her sisters looked away. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. The Emperor's rage burned hotter than the sun's. "Then go," he shouted. "Find your place among them." Her title was stripped. Her guards turned away. By dawn, the princess of the Empire was alone. They gave her a small broken ship and sent her into the cold dark. It was not exile, it was a quiet execution, but Lyra did not cry. She sat in the cracked pilot seat, her hands shaking slightly as she looked at the stars. "If they reject me," she whispered, "then let the stars decide my fate." Her ship drifted through black silence. Days turned to nights and her rations ran low. She slept in bursts, dreaming of home, of the gardens of glass, of her mother's voice, and of a warmth that no longer existed. Then one morning, alarms screamed. A magnetic storm tore through space, shaking her ship apart. She tried to steer, but the old thrusters failed. Lightning cracked across the void and the navigation system died. She barely managed to lock onto a small moon in a nearby human sector before the ship spiraled out of control. The crash was violent. Fire and smoke filled the cabin and everything went black. When she opened her eyes again, she was not in her ship. She was lying on a metal table under a flickering light. A strange humming sound filled the air, and beside her stood a man, human, covered in dust with sharp eyes and hands scarred from work. "Hey," he said, seeing her move. "You're alive." Lyra blinked, trying to focus. "Where am I?" "Maintenance station Epsilon 9, he replied. "You fell out of the sky." She tried to sit up, pain shooting through her side. He moved closer, helping her without hesitation. She flinched at his touch. No alien had ever touched her without permission. "You saved me," she said weakly. He gave a short laugh. "Didn't do much. Just pulled you out of the wreck before it exploded." She looked at him for a long time. His name was Ryan Hale. His voice was rough but kind. He wore a mechanic's uniform with oil stains and a small patch that read, Earth Federation. To her, he looked fragile. But there was something in his eyes, steady, fearless, and alive. "You should not have helped me," she said softly. He frowned. "Why's that?" "They will come," she whispered. "My people will come." Ryan studied her face. "You're not just any alien, are you?" Lyra said nothing. She closed her eyes, but in her silence the truth was clear. For the next few days she rested while Ryan repaired what little remained of her ship. She watched him work, his hands moving quickly, his expression calm. Humans, she realized, were not what her people believed. They were not weak, they were stubborn. They built things with broken tools. They fought storms alone, and they smiled through pain. One night, as dust storms howled outside, Lyra stood by the small window of the outpost, looking at the dark horizon. "Why do humans keep living on worlds like this?" she asked quietly. Ryan glanced up from his tools. "Because someone's got to keep the lights on." She turned toward him, confused. "Even if no one remembers you?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. You do the right thing even when no one's watching." Her heart stirred. It was strange, this man's simple courage. No empire, no crown. Yet his spirit felt larger than any throne she had known. She spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "They called me a traitor. Said I loved your kind too much." Ryan smiled faintly. "Sounds like they've got trust issues." That made her laugh for the first time since exile. The sound surprised her. It was small, soft, but real. When silence fell again, she asked, "Would you still help me if you knew who I was?" Ryan wiped his hands and looked her in the eye. "I don't care who you are. You needed help. That's enough, her chest tightened. No soldier, no noble, no subject in her empire had ever spoken to her that way. But beyond the outpost, the stars were not quiet. The Empire's scanners had already detected faint traces of her ship's energy signature. Drones moved closer each hour. Lyra did not know it yet, but her presence had already lit a signal across the galaxy. And soon her people would come to take her back, dead or alive. The storm outside grew louder, shaking the station walls. Ryan turned up the generator, unaware that the real storm was already on its way. Lyra stood near the window watching the sky. Her heart divided between two worlds, one she had lost and one she had just begun to understand. And somewhere deep inside her, the thought she dared not speak formed for the first time. She wondered what it would feel like if this human, this quiet, stubborn man, looked at her not as a princess, not as an alien, but as someone worth saving again. Days passed on the lonely outpost. The human engineer Ryan Hale lived a quiet life before the crash, routine repairs, ration meals, and endless silence. But now his world felt alive. The alien woman he had rescued was not just anyone. He had sensed it from the first moment. Her movements were graceful, her voice carried weight, and her eyes hid stories deeper than any human could imagine. Lyra stayed in the shelter's small living area, wrapped in an old thermal blanket. Her burns had mostly healed, but her spirit still looked wounded. Ryan would bring her warm tea from a cracked mug each morning. She drank it carefully, studying the rising steam as if it were something holy. "You humans live so simply," she said one day. Ryan smiled. "That's one way to say poor." She tilted her head. "No, not poor, peaceful. You find beauty in things that others would ignore." Ryan shrugged. "Out here, small things keep you sane." Lyra nodded slightly. For her, the galaxy had been nothing but noise and cruelty. Here, the quiet almost frightened her, but also soothed something broken inside her. Still, danger loomed unseen. In orbit above Epsilon 9, the first wave of Varelian probes swept the surface. Their purpose was clear: to locate the lost princess before rumors spread. If she was found alive with a human, the Empire would brand her a traitor forever. Ryan had no idea how close the danger really was. But he felt something in her silence. He could tell she was running from something far greater than a crash. One evening, as he worked on repairing a transmitter, Lyra approached him. Her hair shimmered faintly in the dim light, silver strands catching the glow. "Ryan," she began softly, "you must promise not to contact your command." He looked up. "Why not? If they find me, the Empire will come for you too." He frowned. "You think I'm scared of your people?" She held his gaze. "You should be." He laughed quietly but saw no humor in her eyes. "Then I guess I'll just have to be stupid and brave." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "That combination might save you." The nights on Epsilon 9 were freezing. Sometimes the wind screamed like living things across the rocks. During those hours, Lyra would stand near the heater, staring at the stars through a small window. Ryan could see the longing in her face, a woman torn between loyalty and freedom. She asked him once, "What do humans fight for when everything seems lost?" Ryan thought for a long time before answering. "Each other. When you've got someone worth protecting, losing doesn't matter." Lyra looked away quickly, hiding the emotion in her eyes. Later that night, she explored the workshop. She touched the broken engines, the dusty helmets, the old photographs pinned to the wall. One image showed Ryan standing beside a laughing team of engineers. "Your family?" she asked. "My old crew," he replied quietly. "We were stationed on Mars, then the company cut funding. They sent everyone home. I stayed. Why?" "Because someone's got to keep the lights on," he said again, half smiling. "Even if nobody remembers you." Those words echoed in her mind long after. She realized this human carried the same burden she did, abandoned by those who should have cared. Days turned into a fragile rhythm. Lyra helped with small repairs, learning to use human tools. She watched how Ryan hummed old songs while fixing wires, how he laughed at his own mistakes. The simplicity of his life fascinated her, but the peace began to crack when Ryan picked up faint signals on his scanner. "That's odd," he muttered. "Federation doesn't send patrols this deep anymore." Lyra froze. "It is not your people," Ryan turned. "You mean?" She nodded. "My father's hunters. They will come with ships cloaked in plasma. If they find me here, they will erase this base." Ryan's heart pounded. "You're serious?" They believe I carry information dangerous to the Empire. My life is a secret they cannot afford to keep alive. Ryan rubbed his forehead. So you're telling me your Empire is going to bomb this rock because you fell out of the sky? She met his eyes with sadness. They will destroy anything that proves I cared about humans. For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, the wind howled and the red dust swirled like smoke. Finally, Ryan stood. Then we better move fast. He started packing supplies, tools, rations, energy cells. Lyra watched him quietly, surprised. You do not even hesitate, she said. I'm not letting you face that alone, he replied. You might be an alien princess, but right now you're my responsibility. A strange warmth filled her chest. You are either brave, she whispered, or foolish. Probably both, he said, smiling faintly. By the time the first Virilian drones entered the moon's atmosphere, the two were already hiding in the canyons north of the station. Ryan had sealed the old shelter and left decoy beacons to confuse scanners. They camped in a small cave, the walls glittering with mineral crystals. Lyra sat beside the small fire, watching Ryan work on a handheld jammer. His hands were steady despite everything. She studied him in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, Ryan, do you know what happens when a Virilian royal touches a human? He looked up. I'm guessing it's not good. Our laws say it is contamination. A royal who touches a human can never return to the throne. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Then it's a good thing I'm not much of a throne guy. She almost smiled again, but her eyes shimmered with tears. You joke so easily even when death is near. How? He shrugged. It's how we survive. Fear can't live where laughter does. Lyra turned away, staring into the fire. I thought humans were weak. But now I see it. Your weakness is your strength. You bend but you never break, Ryan said nothing. The silence between them carried more meaning than words could hold. Above them, invisible to the naked eye, Virilian ships circled in the darkness, scanning, searching. Their engines hummed like distant thunder. Lyra tightened her cloak, feeling the weight of everything she had lost and the strange, fragile hope she had found. That night, as Ryan drifted to sleep beside the dying fire, she looked at him and whispered words she could not explain. If I had met you before the crown, before the war, I think I would have never wanted to be royal. Her voice faded into the cold wind. Outside, the galaxy was hunting her, but inside that small cave for the first time in her life, she felt safe. And far above, the Empire's command ship received a faint energy pulse from Epsilon 9. The hunter fleet changed course. The princess was found. The silence of the desert was broken by a deep rumble in the sky. The thin atmosphere trembled as something massive entered orbit. From the mouth of the canyon, Ryan could see the faint glimmer of metal streaks moving like shadows across the stars. Lyra stood beside him, her cloak whipping in the wind. Her golden eyes dimmed as she whispered, They are here. Ryan followed her gaze. Your people? She nodded slowly. My father's fleet. The searchers. They will not rest until I am dead. Ryan clenched his jaw. Then we'll make sure they don't find us. He hurried back inside the cave, checking the small transmitter he had built. The scanner beeped again, flashing red. They're triangulating the wreck site, he muttered. That means they'll hit my outpost next. Lyra closed her eyes. When they do, they will learn you helped me. Ryan looked up sharply. You think I'm scared of them? I've seen human wars. I've seen colonies burn. If they want to fight, they'll get one. Lyra shook her head. You do not understand. The Virilian Empire does not fight fair. They burn everything until nothing remains. Ryan smirked slightly. Then it sounds like we have something in common. By nightfall, they were on the move again. Ryan had mapped a path through the canyon that led to an old mining tunnel, abandoned decades ago. The air was thin, but it would hide them from scanners. They traveled in silence, the only sound the crunch of dust beneath their boots. Lyra glanced at him several times as they walked. There was something strange about this human. He faced the impossible as if it were routine. Every time she tried to warn him, he only smiled and said, We'll figure it out. When they reached the mouth of the tunnel, Ryan placed a motion beacon by the entrance. This should throw them off, he said. Lyra studied his calm face. Why do you do this for me? She asked softly. You owe me nothing. He looked back at her. Because you're not just running from your people. You're running from a life that tried to decide who you are. I know what that feels like. She stared at him for a long time. In her empire, no one spoke of weakness or pain. Yet this human did openly, without shame. Above them, the fleet descended. The lead ship was a Varillian dreadnought, sleek and massive, its engines glowing blue. On the bridge stood General Orin, the Emperor's right hand and Lyra's former guardian. His face was carved from stone. "Deploy the hunters," he ordered. "Find her before dawn. The Emperor commands her silence." Dozens of scout drones shot out across the night sky, scanning the rocks, searching for any sign of her life. Their scanners picked up faint traces, residual human energy signatures, heat trails, and one peculiar signal, 2 heartbeats traveling together. Oran narrowed his eyes. She is not alone. Down below, Ryan and Lyra sat in the dim light of the mining tunnel. He was checking his weapon, an old pulse rifle, while Lyra stared into the darkness, her thoughts heavy. "I do not understand your kind," she murmured. "You live such short lives, yet you fight for everything." Ryan smiled faintly. "We fight because we don't have forever. Makes every second mean something." Her expression softened. "If my people thought like you, there would be no empires left." "Maybe that's the point," he said quietly. A loud tremor shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryan jumped to his feet. "They've found the outpost," he said. The distant sky glowed red as the first bombardment began. The explosion lit the horizon. The shockwave hit a few moments later, sending a low roar through the valley. Lyra stood motionless, her face pale. "They are killing your people," she said. Ryan shook his head. "No one else is stationed here. They're wasting fire on empty walls." Lyra looked at him, something breaking inside her. "You risked your life to protect me, and now they destroy your home." He met her gaze. "Homes can be rebuilt. Lives can't." For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the distant echo of destruction. Hours later, the drones found their trail. Small lights flickered through the canyon, moving closer like silent predators. Ryan set up makeshift traps, mining charges, tripwires, anything he could find. When the first drone came into view, its red eye sweeping the darkness, Ryan fired. The pulse bolt struck its core, sending it crashing into the rocks. The blast echoed like thunder. "Move!" Ryan shouted. Lyra followed, her cloak streaming behind her as they ran deeper into the tunnel. Behind them, more drones swarmed, their plasma fire lighting the stone walls. They ducked into a side passage, gasping for air. Ryan's shoulder was bleeding from a glancing hit, but he barely noticed. Lyra reached out, pressing her glowing hand against his wound. The air shimmered with faint blue light as the burn sealed. "Hold still," she said softly. Ryan stared in surprise. "What was that?" "Royal healing code," she replied. "Forbidden to use on outsiders," he smirked. "Guess I'm honored," she smiled faintly. "Or doomed." Outside, General Orin's command ship received the battle feed. The drones were falling faster than expected. He narrowed his eyes. "The human fights well," he said coldly. "Eliminate him first." But as the drones advanced, Lyra's energy surged. Her eyes glowed bright gold. She stepped out from the shadows, her hands raised. The power radiating from her body pulsed like a sun. The drones froze mid-air. Metal cracked, sensors melted, and one by one they dropped to the ground, lifeless. Ryan stared in awe. What did you just do?" Lyra lowered her hands, trembling. "I called the storm." He caught her as she stumbled, her strength fading fast. "Hey, stay with me," he said quietly. "We're almost through this," her voice shook. "You do not understand. By using my power, I told them where we are." Ryan looked out toward the glowing sky. He saw the massive shadow of the dreadnought turning toward them. He whispered, "Then let them come." The next morning, smoke rose across the horizon. The Empire's fleet was descending, engines burning blue. The hunt was no longer secret. It was war. Ryan checked his rifle again, his hands steady. Lyra stood beside him, pale but determined. For the first time in her life, she was not running. She was standing with someone who had nothing to gain yet refused to abandon her. The roar of the engines grew louder. Ryan looked at her and said, "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Lyra turned her head slowly, her voice trembling but proud. "Then they will learn what it means to face a human who loves without fear." And as the first ships broke through the clouds, their shadows falling over the canyon, she took his hand. In that moment, she stopped being a princess and became something far greater, a symbol of defiance. The galaxy was about to remember that humanity never kneels. The night sky burned blue as the Varelian dreadnoughts moved closer. The hum of their engines rolled across the canyons like thunder from another world. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power. Ryan and Lyra stood on the ridge, watching the lights grow brighter. It was not a fleet anymore, it was an execution force. Ryan tightened the strap of his rifle. We can still make it to the northern ridge. There's a transmitter there. I can call for a human frigate. Lyra shook her head. No, they will intercept the signal. If they track it, Earth Federation will send ships and the Empire will destroy them. Ryan stared at her. So we just wait here to die? Lyra looked away, her face unreadable. I must surrender. If I return to them, they may spare you. Ryan stepped closer, his voice rising. You think I'm going to let you walk into their hands? After all this? You do not understand, she said quietly. If I stay, millions could die. My father believes humans corrupted me. He will burn this entire system to prove his power. Her voice trembled for the first time since he met her. If I give myself up, the war will not start. It is the only way. Ryan's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but deep down he knew she was right. Her people had built empires on blood and silence. One human outpost was nothing to them. He clenched his fists. Then I'm coming with you. Lyra turned, eyes wide. No. They will kill you the moment they see your face. Then I'll make sure they see it last, he said. She stared at him, torn between admiration and fear. Why do you keep risking everything? Because you're worth it, Ryan said simply. You showed me something I forgot. Why humans fight at all. Her eyes softened, but pain filled them. You cannot save me, Ryan, but you can survive. That is enough. He shook his head. Not for me. When dawn came, the fleet was already descending. The dust storms glowed with their light. Lyra stood at the mouth of the canyon, her cloak billowing behind her. Her armor shimmered faintly beneath it. The royal seal still burned across her chestplate. Ryan stood beside her, holding his rifle, his jaw set. Tell me what you're thinking, he said. She looked up at the ships. That for the first time in my life I am not afraid to die. Ryan's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her not to speak like that, but words felt too small. The first dropships landed with a thunderous roar. Metal legs pierced the ground and squads of Varelian soldiers poured out. Tall, armored, their eyes cold. Lyra stepped forward slowly, hands raised. I surrender, she said. Her voice was calm, steady. Ryan froze. Lyra, no. She turned slightly, her eyes meeting his one last time. You must live. The galaxy will need your kind more than ever. The soldiers surrounded her, their weapons glowing with energy. One of them spoke harshly in Varelian, demanding identification. Lyra pressed her hand to her chestplate, revealing the royal mark. The soldiers fell silent and bowed. General Oren stepped from the lead ship, his armor dark and shining. His face was lined with scars, his expression cold. Princess Lyra, he said, your father demands your return. The Emperor is merciful for now. Lyra met his gaze without fear. And the human? Oren's eyes flicked toward Ryan. He will die. Before Ryan could raise his weapon, Lyra stepped between them. No, you will not touch him, the general sneered. You protect vermin now? Lyra's voice grew sharper. He saved me. He showed me what honor truly means. If you harm him, I will never return. Oren studied her, then laughed bitterly. You already never will. He lifted his weapon, but before he could fire, Ryan threw down his rifle and stepped forward. If you want to kill someone, kill me. Leave her out of it. The general smirked. Brave words from a dying species. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, stop! But Ryan didn't move. You came all this way to erase one woman because she believes in peace? That's not strength. That's fear. For the first time, Oren hesitated. Behind him, some of the soldiers shifted uneasily. Lyra took the chance. She reached for Ryan's hand. Please, she whispered, let me end this. He shook his head, but her grip was firm. Promise me you'll live, she said. Promise me you'll keep fighting. Before he could answer, she pressed a small crystal into his palm. When you see the sky burn red, remember me. Then she turned, her shoulders straight, her chin high. She walked toward the waiting ship without looking back. The soldiers closed ranks around her, their armor reflecting the pale morning light. Ryan stood there, unable to move. The engines roared, lifting the ship into the sky. The dust blinded him, but through the storm he could still hear her voice in his mind, soft, steady, and full of quiet power. I surrender. But the human stays free. When the sound faded, Ryan dropped to his knees. His hand opened slowly, revealing the small glowing crystal she had left behind. It pulsed once, faintly, like a heartbeat. He whispered her name. Lyra. Far above, in the Verilian dreadnought, Lyra stood before General Orrin in chains. Her head was held high. You could have ruled beside your father, he said coldly. Instead, you chose a human. What did he give you that we could not? She smiled faintly. A reason to fight for something real. Orrin turned away in disgust. You are no longer Verilian. You are a traitor, then so be it, she said. But remember this. Humans may be weak in body, but their hearts will outlast your empire. Outside the window, the stars passed like rivers of light. Lyra closed her eyes. Somewhere down there, Ryan was alive. That was enough. The fleet turned toward home, unaware that their empire's greatest change had already begun. Not through war, but through one woman's choice. Weeks passed after the fleet left Epsilon 9. The moon lay quiet again, but nothing felt alive anymore. The sky was gray, the wind colder, and the outpost that once hummed with life stood in ruins. Ryan Hale spent his days rebuilding what little he could, mostly to keep from thinking. Every sound reminded him of her voice, every spark of welding light of her golden eyes. He fixed the damaged comms tower and watched the stars at night, hoping for a signal. None came. Only static filled the speakers. He told himself she was alive somewhere, but doubt grew like rust inside his chest. Humans had legends about warriors and princesses. They always ended in sacrifice. Still he waited. Every sunrise he looked east where her ship had vanished, whispering quietly, I'll hold the promise, Lyra. Far across the void, the royal dreadnought entered the capital orbit of Verilia. The palace was silent as Lyra was led through marble corridors toward the Emperor's throne room. Chains bound her wrists, glowing faintly with suppressor fields. Her father sat on the throne, surrounded by ministers and soldiers. You have disgraced your blood, the Emperor said, his voice echoing across the chamber. You brought shame to our name for a human. Lyra stood tall despite the pain in her shoulders. I brought no shame, Father. I found what we have lost. Honor, compassion, courage. The court gasped. The Emperor's eyes turned hard. You speak of weakness. I speak of strength, she said calmly. A strength you cannot measure in bloodlines. General Orrin stepped forward. Sire, she has infected our soldiers with human ideals. Discipline must be restored. The Emperor raised his hand. Enough. I will judge my own blood. He rose from the throne, his presence filling the room like gravity. You have two choices, he said. Swear loyalty once more and denounce your betrayal, or die as a human slave. Lyra lifted her head. If loyalty means silence, then I choose exile again. The chamber erupted in outrage. The Emperor's face darkened, but he did not strike her. Instead, he turned away. Then you are no longer of this house. You are nothing. The guards dragged her toward the cell block, but she smiled faintly. Then nothing will change everything, she whispered. Days later, the rebellion began. Not from humans, but from within the Empire. News spread that the lost princess had defied the Emperor himself. Young soldiers started questioning orders. Colonies whispered her name like a symbol of freedom. Lyra the Defiant, they called her. General Orrin realized too late what had happened. By trying to silence her, the Emperor had turned her into a legend. The royal fleet fractured, loyalty splitting between fear and belief. Under the cover of the chaos, a single ship left the capital dock. A small craft piloted by someone the Empire believed dead. Lyra sat at its helm, cloak wrapped tight, eyes fixed on the distant stars. She carried no weapons, no army, only the memory of a human's promise. She whispered, Ryan, I'm coming home. Back on Epsilon 9, Ryan heard a strange sound one night, a soft hum through the static. He ran to the console. The comm light flickered once, then twice. A voice crackled through. Ryan, do you still believe in kindness? He froze, every breath catching in his throat. Lyra, the voice came clearer now, tired but alive. I told them I would not rule a world without you. He ran outside, staring at the sky. A faint silver glow descended through the clouds, followed by the soft whine of thrusters. The dust storm lit up like dawn. When the ship landed, its hatch opened slowly. She stepped out, no crown, no armor, just a worn traveler's cloak and a faint smile. Her eyes shimmered gold in the pale light. Ryan walked forward in disbelief. "You're real." Lyra nodded. "More than ever." He reached out, touching her hand carefully, afraid she would vanish. But her fingers were warm, her grip steady. "I broke every law for this," she said softly. "But I do not care. They may call me traitor, but I choose this exile. I choose you." Ryan looked at her, speechless. "You gave up everything.